look at this one.
Yeah, it's right there.
This is a little bit like, what is it? Like one of those where you're sitting behind a glass where people are interviewing you or interrogating you, yes.
Mr. Papandreou, as a former Prime Minister of Greece, can you talk to us about the political situation in Europe? Why does a united Europe matter in a globalised world?
United Europe, I think, is an experiment. We began as a peace project because of the two world wars, where we became more interdependent as countries so that we could not fight a war without hurting our own interests, that we would basically say, never again war. And as a matter of fact, we have achieved this over the last 50 years. But Europe today also is a project where we can show the world that different traditions, different languages, different peoples, different countries can work together, can pool their sovereignty, can transfer their sovereignty to a common body, if you like, in order to be stronger, in order to have greater powers in dealing with these wider global issues. So this is where I think we will be able to show that we can work together at the global level, basing our politics on a common set of values of humanizing globalization. And in doing so, working together means also solving these problems together, which we do have the potential to do, as long as we get beyond the narrow nationalisms and sometimes the extremisms that this crisis has created. We're seeing this in the industrialized world where the competitiveness of the industrialized countries is being undermined by the emerging markets, which have become much more competitive. However, what we also, I think, should be very wary of is that this competitiveness in some of the emerging markets has been based on very low wages, lack of collective agreements, the denigration of the environment, even sometimes the lack of democratic institutions and social welfare, of course. That gives them a comparative advantage. Now, is that the model we want to emulate? Is it a race to the bottom? I believe not. I believe this is where Europe must invest in becoming competitive, not through inequality, but through highlighting and upgrading quality products, which means investing in human capacity, investing in infrastructure, investing in green growth and green energy grids, in internet grids, and so on. Today, Europe is facing, of course, a crisis because it is seen as being faced with huge debts, sovereign debt after the 2008 crisis. I don't believe the solution to this is simply austerity. Certainly we need fiscal responsibility, but we need a growth story, and that's what I mean when we talk about investment in human beings, research, innovation, and infrastructure. So I believe that if we really want to deal with this crisis as it is today, we need a different approach, a different policy from the European Union, and this is something which, of course, I have advocated. We're living in a globalized society, and in this globalized society there are certain challenges, major challenges, whether we saw the financial crisis, which needs regulation. We see the concentration of power and wealth outside of our nations, for example, tax havens. We see the global climate change, which is impacting us all. We see deep inequalities which are developing in our societies. This needs a humanizing factor, and I believe that Europe, with its capacities, working together, can develop the policies to deal with this crisis. The younger generation of our times is maybe the most educated. It has access to information. It also can see very well that we do have the resources as a human race. We have more wealth than ever before. We have more technology than ever before. We have greater knowledge than ever before. We have the capacity to deal with problems. There is the potential there, whether it's poverty, whether it's climate change, whether it's migration, financial structures. But these problems are problems that are beyond our nations. Our structures, our political parties, our national institutions are national. They are not European or global. That is why we are sometimes seen as not as potent as we should be. It's sort of, why is politics relevant? Well, politics is relevant But we are now talking about politics not only at the national level, but also in politics and our democracy beyond borders. This is where we need to work together to empower ourselves by pooling our resources so that we can say, yes, as a unit, as a united European community, we will be able to deal with issues such as the crisis in the financial system by, for example, imposing a financial transaction tax at the European level on banks, or a CO2 tax, and use these resources for the retraining or the development or the growth of a green economy. And we need to work together beyond borders and using this great opportunity of diversity as a strength rather than as a weakness. It is not only in the interest of the younger generation, I think they need to take up the mantle, they need to take up the flag of changing Europe, of creating a Europe of the citizens, a Europe beyond borders, a Europe where our diversity is our strength, where we can integrate and pool our resources and use these resources for creating a more humane society. And therefore, I would see them beyond protest, which is part of the democratic need, that people need to voice their opinions, constructive work, constructive political work, constructive participation in helping all of us change Europe to what we dream it can be.